Welcome SBL to week 5 match of the week. We have two very fun players here in Trip and Dustin Day, and I have my partner, the
Hey,
commish.
what's up, guys? How you doing, SBL? Looking forward to a fantastic Week 5 match of the week.
Can I get some happy birthdays in the chat? He did just turn 29 yesterday, the commish. All right.
All right.
So I don't know about you guys, but we're just gonna hop right into it. So we have Trip's team here. This is a team that's near and dear to me. I got my guy Garchomp, and Corviknight, who I've won with before. This is pretty standard Garchomp set. We have an interesting bring in the Terra Electric Terra Blast. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what that's for. My guess is Manaphy, probably, to give Garchomp kind of a way to do big damage to it. We also have a standard support Toedscruel, which has some good chemistry with Wheezing, obviously getting rid of that Mycelium Mite. Spore, Rage Powder, can definitely disrupt, and I think is on the same speed tier as Manaphy, so that's definitely going to be something to watch. Rotom Frost, a pretty offensive-oriented one with the Life Orb. This is the standard Boulder set with Wild Charge for Manaphy as well, which is pretty interesting. So you can tell he's prepped a lot for Dustin's Manaphy, which makes sense. The Corviknight set's pretty bizarre because we have an Assault Vest, so no Tailwind support at all, just 4 attacks. And then finally we're finishing off with a Choice Specs Wheezing. I think that's something we see a lot from him, and it's very strong with those 4 moves. Terra Water, Terra Blast as well, likely another way to hit the Arcanine Hisui that Dustin has. So it'd be pretty interesting to see how these Terra Blasts come into play for Old Trip.
Yeah, for sure. And with Dustin, we have some more traditional kind of move set here with some of his Pokemon. We have Manaphy with the standard Tail Glow, Scald, Ice Beam. This is interesting though because it's a leftover set. So it's going to get that health regeneration there to kind of stay alive longer. Raikou's got the big screen support, to also increase that longevity. On top of that, Iron Leaves with booster energy, Quark Drive. You gotta love that taunt just to stop any shenanigans, maybe the Spore shenanigans or things along those lines. Of course, we got the traditional Yanma with Compound Eyes, which is rocking the Hypnosis. Might be in for some trouble with that neutralizing gas, but other than that, some Tailwind support and Feint to break through any potential protects that are there. Arcanine Hisui's coming out too with the Choice Scarf Rockhead. Very, very strong insta damage. Flare Blitz, Head Smash, Rock Slide. These are all going to do big damage, especially to some of those Pokemon that are a little bit weaker to those types. We have Furret to round things off, which just a little bit of extra support here. Follow Me, Helping Hand, Super Fang, Safety Goggles to ignore any spores or Rage Powders, or even redirect that spore into it. So a lot of options here. Very kind of defensive team to really set up longevity and let Manaphy sweep. So I think this will be a good match for us here in week 5.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see because it's like no Compound Eyes with Wheezing is something to think about if he wants to chance those 60% Hypnosises. No Rocket on Arcanine. It might take a lot of recoil too. And there's some interesting stuff here with Wheezing, how it's going to affect, Iron Leaves not having Quark Drive at moments. So that could be an interesting gameplay.
I definitely think Wheezing will play a big role here. That neutralizing gas, a lot of Pokemon like their abilities, but especially, Rockhead and Inner Focus are some good ones in general. And, Compound Eyes missing those Hypnosises could definitely come into play. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that.
And I believe we are hopping in here.
Yeah,
straight
looks like
to the match this time.
All right. Furret Manaphy lead from Dustin. Looks like we're going to go instantly for the Tail Glow. Trip is kind of saying no abilities today.
So this is interesting. So obviously the Garchomp's slightly faster than the Manaphy. So we have that. He's already thinking about it, potentially a Terra Blast option here. But the Furret has easy setup options to help Manaphy get off the Tail Glow. Yeah,
you have that Follow Me. It's obviously a threat. You got to decide if you want to do damage. From Dustin's side, I think you're thinking here, do I burn the Terra right away? Or do I go ahead and take the potential Earthquake damage? Really, I think there's not a whole lot on the side of Trip to, deter the Grass Terra, but he might kind of want to save it to play some mind games down the line.
For sure. And it does open it up to Sludge Bombs if he gets to that point, because I would say Dustin has nothing to really pressure Trip immediately. Maybe an Ice Beam from Manaphy if he wants to go more aggressive, but it does seem like Trip has the instant offense here to do some damage potentially.
Yeah, obviously, as you very well know, Garchomp with that 4 times weakness is not going to be living very long. Yes. It looks like we see a switch here from the Wheezing, so those abilities are back on the market.
big hydration and big Kenai are back for
Yeah.
Dustin.
Hey, those are some strong abilities right now.
So we see
Big
the
follow
safety
me.
follow me. Makes sense. Likely respecting that Terra Blast option that Trip's presenting.
Yeah, it looks like no Terra, so this Earthquake will probably do some decent damage here.
Wow, and Manaphy ate that up really well.
Yeah, that is a bulky Manaphy. I wonder if Dustin opted for extra bulk this week, or, you know, maybe it was even a bulky Garchomp. It's hard to say.
Definitely, but it being a 2-hit's pretty important on Ferd, I'd say. Definitely gives him some leeway here just to click Quake again, really.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think you have to make a decision whether you want to Terra or not, but truth be told, I don't know. You think Garchomp's going to live a Scald at +3? Because I'm not convinced.
Well, it really depends. Like if you run like a lot of offense on your Manaphy, is it getting those big OHKOs? It's +3, but also I think something I'm wondering is he probably doesn't Terra Grass here because he has to respect this Corviknight, and I don't think Corviknight's going down so easily. So I could see Corviknight getting some offense off on Manaphy at the end of this turn.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. Because you might want to click Super Fang on something as bulky as a Corviknight, you know, because even at +3, Corviknight's a little bulky bird, so he's going to be living for a while.
Corviknight's definitely interesting. So we see the Protect come out from Trip, just trying to play safe here.
A little safe. It seems like going to Protect on Manaphy, which is also a safe play. I'm wondering here if we're going to see the Super Fang after all, and we do. Into the Corv, big damage.
A lot of damage to give off.
But Body Press right back, so the redirection is gone, but now we're in a position where the Manaphy can probably take out the Corviknight. Still up in the air with the Garchomp for sure, but Leftovers recovery is extremely useful.
Yeah. I honestly like that turn a lot for Dustin, because I think getting that guaranteed damage off on Corviknight's a pretty big deal, because I think that's one of the things that can probably sponge a Manaphy attack. At this point, I'm kind of under the assumption Manaphy could OHKO both of these Pokemon, so I think that's a very scary thing to just have on the table.
Yeah, now what's interesting here is Raikou the Banana Peel's coming out. I feel this is an opportune moment to set a Reflect and really just keep that damage down on your Manaphy, because it looks like this is an incredibly bulky Manaphy. So, you know, you click Reflect and you start launching attacks, and I think you're going to be in pretty good shape here.
It's definitely interesting. Trip has the option to kind of call the Manaphy if it's like, I'm going to Terra Blast Electric you. If you Terra Grass, I'm going to hit you with a flying move or a U-turn from Corviknight. He can kind of at least get off some super effective damage, but you're right, with the Reflect, I almost don't know if that would matter, and it would just be able to bulk through it.
Yeah, I guess another option is the Thunderbolt could just be the play as well. Just go directly into the Corviknight, try to take it out. Depends on what Dustin really IDs as the bigger threat here in the current board
He has
state.
the Assault Vest. I'm going to go on a limb and he doesn't live through a Thunderbolt, but...
Yeah, Raikous are pretty strong. You know, they may not be the strongest Pokemon, but pretty strong overall. It looks like we do see a Terra Electric from the Garchomp, though. Is he going to call the non-Terra and go straight for the Terra Blast into the Manaphy?
And we see the Terra Grass out from Dustin?
We do. Big Terra Grass here. That's definitely a good play to make, I think, in this position. Both players made some pretty good plays here because, you know, obviously you want to be Terra Electric for a chance to live the Scald. You don't know if you're going to live it. It's hard to know. But there is the Reflect, so that's not going to do a lot of damage to the Manaphy here. The resisted Terra Blast. Let's see how much it does. Coming in on the Reflect.
Well, honestly, more than I thought.
Oh, it was a crit. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, I think that did more than the Earthquake there. The Scald is going to clean up the Corviknight, though, so that is one of the better pieces Trip had to deal with the Poison-type Manaphy. Not the only piece, but definitely an important loss here.
Well, and that kind of confirmed it was over a 2-hit on the Corv. I wasn't sure with the Assault Vest. Corv is just naturally bulky, and it could have been invested away, maybe, but it does seem it's probably always going to be at least a 2-hit based on that.
Yeah, see, and I think right now, if you're Trip, you're really wanting an Earthquake. So I think he was almost forced into bringing in his Boulder here, because it's the only Pokemon with Protect. That's one downside to actually running Earthquake, is, you know, it does hit your ally, so you have to deal with that in play as well.
Something kind of interesting is the Boulder's an attack booster, which I believe means it has to be adamant, so it could be undersped by the Raikou here. I suspect that could be the case at least.
Yeah, because I'd have to imagine at the very least Dustin would still want that max speed just to outspeed the Garchomp, unless there's a weird speed creep scenario. But we do see a Protect from the Manaphy. What do we
Could
see?
be a good turn here for Trip.
Scald into the boulder. And an
Just
Earthquake from
Quake
Trip.
come out. Does
You know,
this
there-
through reflect?
The Reflect, I don't know that it can, no boosting item, but Earthquake is still going to do a nasty chunk, I think, to this guy. Not too bad.
Honestly, good damage. And the Dustin's just calling those. He's just doing those easy protects, but it's that leftover recovery. You can tell it's something he really values, that health that he's going to get on Manaphy over these turns. So I think it makes sense for him to kind of play it relatively safe, as that's his major win con, is what he's thinking at this time.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about Trip's team right now is he's kind of pinned where he can't do a lot of damage with Guard Chomp on the field without hurting his own teammate. With the Reflect up, I'm not even sure Dragon Claw will be able to take out the Raikou. It really depends on the EV spread. You might decide to double target the Manaphy, but that thing is bulky, and it's going to start killing things in one hit as well, so you got to be careful.
Mighty Cleave's obviously a strong move in itself. The attack boost will help, certainly. This Iron Boulder does have a lot of output, I would imagine, even through a Reflect.
Yeah, I would have to think so as well. I think if you're... Oh, wow, that took that very well.
Yeah.
Does he get the burn?
Oh.
He does get the burn. That is a massive burn there.
But let's see.
Hey, at the end of the day, it is 30%, but ooh, that did not do
Honestly,
very much
that did not do very much.
So it's interesting here. I'd have to imagine a Scald into the boulder.
Yeah.
Good play there. It shuts down the Earthquake. So now we get to... Yeah, we see the Wheezing come back in, and this is definitely an interesting board state because it is choice specs Wheezing. So I'd have to imagine a Sludge Bomb will kill a Manaphy. But the only question to that is, can Wheezing live a special attack from a Manaphy? Because I'm sure you know with Wheezing on your team, its special attack is, or special defense rather, it's lacking.
And this is kind of one of these making a team with Garchomp is so difficult because you find yourself in these spots where you want to click Earthquake, and here he is again where it's tough. Like Earthquake would be a great move to click, but he's obviously has trouble clicking it because he can't kill his own Wheezing, and his Wheezing can't even protect because it's choice locked. So
yeah, looks like we do see a light screen just really trying to minimize that damage. The Dragon Claw, a good play into the Raikou, and it does hang on.
Barely lives.
Barely lives there. So this
and now I would suspect Wheezing can't kill the Manaphy through a light screen. Well, no, it probably still does, you'd think, right?
It's tough to say for sure. With it being choice spec, I think it probably can still kill from that range, but again, this could have been an incredibly bulky Manaphy set, so it's hard to say. I'm expecting that we might see a double into the Wheezing slot, no protect. The Wheezing being alive is kind of the win con. That Manaphy is incredibly bulky and it kills everything in one hit.
Yeah, I think Wheezing's the most threatening mon left for Trip to present here, so yeah, Thunderbolt makes sense. We see the
Dragon Claw.
Good
not
damage,
quite enough. And that is a dead Wheezing. Now what's interesting here is Trip has freed up the ability to Earthquake. Obviously, it's not going to do very much damage to a Manaphy, but it might still be the play you want to make. It's definitely tough to say because that Manaphy could definitely protect. The Raikou is not going to be doing much to Garchomp, but it does threaten a burn chance. And especially in this endgame, that's not where you want to be. He goes for his own protect.
Does Dustin protect to get that leftover? So he does, which is kind of how he's playing it, which makes sense.
That's actually a pretty good play too by Trip, because at the very least that baits out a protect, giving him a chance to potentially go for the Dragon Claw to pick up the kill on Manaphy.
I want to say that's his best play, is to potentially push for a kill on Manaphy and maybe run a crit chance.
Yeah, definitely a chance. I mean, I don't think that Dragon Claw has been able to kill yet. Surprisingly, he's actually going for the Earthquake here. That could be the better play as well, though, going for the crit, just getting rid of that Raikou so you can't be Scald Burn.
Yeah, and something I want to talk about is Light Clay is a pretty interesting item because VGC matches don't ever feel like they go that long, so Light Clay sometimes isn't worth it. But the way Dustin's team is designed with Manaphy, he has these longer games. So you're seeing like the Light Clay is important. The Reflect is still up from 7 turns ago. Like that's pretty important here, and it's definitely a good bring by him. Fortunately,
no burn, but it's a crit, so it actually doesn't matter. It's unfortunate data not given there. I think there's a good chance that the Chomp just dies there, but you never know. I mean, maybe it was a no special attack investment Manaphy here, and And it was max special defense Garchomp. You know, some weird kooky spreads could have led to a different outcome. But
Yeah, Garchomp's kind of bulky, but I am inclined to believe that Skull probably got the kill.
I think there's a good chance that is correct. But you know, you gotta believe in the kid sometimes. You know, Garchomp. I thought of all people, you know, he'd be your boy. You want to hope for his success there, but yeah, very good match there.
Yeah, Dustin played that really well. I think he just got Manaphy in a position really early, and Trip didn't really have enough pressure there to break through. I think is what we saw.
Yeah, and I definitely want to see how he adapts here, because obviously there's not a lot of ways to stop that immense power from the Tail Glow, and you know, Scald and Ice Beam essentially hits everything, and the Pokemon that you can't hit for super effective, you still threaten that burn.
Absolutely. The burn chance is very relevant here. I think Mon's like, you know, like we saw the Iron Boulder get burnt. Garchomp always running that chance is scary, even with Terra being able to live some stuff.
No, for sure. It looks like the adaptation here might be to actually bring Toadscruel.
I don't think that's a bad call at all. I think potentially throwing out some spores, maybe forcing a Terra Grass earlier, and kind of using some mons like Rotom Frost or Corviknight earlier, or even he has a lot of ways to touch grass types, you know. It's not Garchomp his main guy, but they exist on this team, so forcing a Terra out and potentially just throwing some spores off to cause trouble could be a good play.
Yeah, it looks like it might have been swapped over to Rotom. I do think I could see the vision here, you know, the Earthquake with the levitating Rotom, or, you know, the Terra Electrics directly into the Manaphy slot, hitting Blizzard, Electroweb, or Thunderbolt. You know, the spread moves are definitely going to be beneficial here into allowing Trip to kind of get some damage, maybe control the speed a little bit, to even potentially outspeed the Manaphy if the Manaphy's not running a lot of speed, with the Wheezing down the line or something along those lines.
Definitely. It'll be interesting to see if, you know, obviously Rotom Frost does have some benefits here, but if Dustin decides to run Arcanine Hisui now, I think that could definitely cause some trouble for Rotom. So it might just really depend on the lead here if Rotom's able to actually get some ground.
Well, I think the truth is with Dustin, you know, we didn't even see his fourth Mon. It very well could have been Arcanine Hisui, which is just a massive damage dealer. Looks like we'll see a slightly different lead here. Raikou and Manaphy from Dustin, and then the Rotom and Garchomp from Trip. It looks like Dustin really wants to set up those screens early and just really preserve that bulk right off the bat.
I honestly love this lead for both players, because I think Dustin has what he wants, which is to set the screens and get Manaphy going early, and what Trip wants is offense on both those guys. He threatens grass, he has blizzards to throw off, he could just go into electric spam. I mean, he has a lot of ways to pressure Dustin. He has a lot of ways to pressure Dustin here, I feel like. So it's kind of interesting how they play this. Yeah,
no, he definitely does. And I mean, with Rotom, you can just go straight for the Blizzard, try to do some spread damage to both parties, go straight for a Thunderbolt into Manaphy, trying to call the No-Terra. Maybe just go for Electroweb so that you're going to be faster the next turn. You know, there's just a lot of options here. And I think if you're Dustin, you just want to, again, maybe set up those... Maybe you just want to go for the burn, too, rather than just the screen. Go for the burn.
I honestly wonder if Dustin's just going to protect his Manaphy instead of screen, maybe, and just play it slow. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's no real reason not to. We do see the Garchomp Terra first, which doesn't mean a lot, but we see the Terra here on Manaphy after all.
So Terra Grass Manaphy's coming out. Pretty safe, but Trip does have Blizzards, so it's risky.
Yeah, definitely risky. And, you know, if you are the Raikou, I guess you have to decide attack, light screen, or reflect. He does opt for the reflect. If we see a Blizzard here, that could do some real damage.
Something that's interesting to me is I feel like if you're going to Terra Grass your Manaphy, you might be more inclined to light screen, because it's the best option to hit that is Blizzard.
That's true. Straight for the Ice Beam. No Tail Glow here. No freeze. We do see a Blizzard, and a Blizzard takes down the Manaphy.
Okos.
That is huge. I won't say it's over yet, though, because we still have Arcanine in the back, potentially. Iron Leaves, a lot here from Dustin. That's definitely a good start for Trip, but, you know, Dustin's a very good player. We'll have to see how he adapts here.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing there when you go for Reflected. You kind of open Trip up to rip a really strong special attack there at the start, and Trip committed to it, and he got rewarded in a lot of ways with the kill there.
Yeah, and now you're in a peculiar spot here. You bring in the Iron Leaves, which, you know, it has some decent moves. It has some coaching, Side Blade, Leaf Blade. So definitely some damage that can be done here. And I think you just got to start chipping away. I don't know that you need to do anything more than that at this point. You just really got to try to make up some ground for losing Manaphy so early.
Yeah, it's interesting. The support Raikou is obviously actually been pretty good here, but it's also feels like it doesn't have enough pressure at the same time. It doesn't, have that like Oko potential that Trip's presenting in regards to just straight offense.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, this lead from Trip it was very offensive. He kind of said, "I don't care if you bring follow me." It was definitely a good adaptation. We see a protect here, but we'll have to see what we get from Dustin's side here. A Leaf Blade,
Right.
pretty massive damage. A Scald
Ooh,
into the protect though.
And what exactly did Trip do? And he ripped
Trip goes for
another
the Blizzard.
Blizzard.
And it
Wow.
connects. Oh no! And the
And
freeze.
a freeze. That's
Oh
really
no,
unfortunate.
that's definitely rough. I'm not gonna say that it can't be done, but it's looking tough at this exact point.
And I do not believe that's what we wanted to
Oh.
see in this game.
That's a little rough, I think, for sure. I mean, maybe we can get a first turn thaw here, because I don't know if you've looked at the moves for the Furret, but unfortunately the only damaging move that it has is actually Super Fang. So it's it'll do big damage. It's just never
Yeah.
gonna win the game.
I think that's a dominant game 2 win by Trip, just committing to his hyper offense. Folks, let me tell you, the snow is not up. Those blizzards just hit. I would never hit those personally. That's crazy. He hit 4, but he hit them, and it kind of got rewarded in a lot of ways with how this game went.
Yeah, I thought that Rotom had Life Orb, but apparently it has the wide lens on there too.
Yeah, the way they were hitting, I mean,
The 70s 100% of the time sometimes though, so Pokemon math's a different kind of math.
well, I don't want to dwell on, but I think that all kind of goes down to that first turn where he terra'd in a way that limited Garchomp, but set Reflect, where I think Light Screen there would have been like very important into weakening that Rotom, because it kind of in a lot of ways left Rotom unchecked, and in 2 turns Rotom just ended the game. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're playing with the Blizzard roll. I think it'll be interesting to see how Dustin, reacts to that, because I don't think he'll do the same thing. It's unfortunate for his Manaphy, because it is kind of pinned with that lead, because, I mean, Blizzard Terra Electric is going to do massive damage. I think we might see a return of the Furret, or potentially maybe even see some Yanma action here, because I think there's a lot that could be done, a lot that could be toyed with, because we see Trip here, looks like he's not even bringing the Weezing, so abilities are back on the table if there was a concern.
yeah, I wonder if Dustin. It makes me. Do you think Iron Leaves could have been the one in the back from game 1? I'm wondering if we're going to see that Arcanine. Obviously, has some risks, right? Because you're worried about Quake. It's do you want more weaknesses to Garchomp? But at the same time, it has a lot of offense, which last game it kind of felt like he was lacking getting that instant offense, where he didn't get to go his way and have Tail Glow get set up and just bulk it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think almost that's why I would have to see. We might see the return of the Furret here, but it looks like a brand new start entirely. The
Wow.
Yanma Arcanine. I like seeing this versus the Corviknight and the Garchomp.
This is a very interesting situation, I would say. I wish you'd really want Weezing almost to get rid of these Hypnosises, right? At least make them a little less accurate, because Sleep's so brutal.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a peculiar spot, because I'd have to imagine, that Rockhead Flare Blitz can probably take out the Corviknight. I know Corviknight's bulky, but that is a very strong attack. But likewise, if you go straight for the Earthquake, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to Arcanine. But again, the question is, maybe you want that Yanma gone, because you do not want to be put to sleep the rest of the match.
Well, I worry if that's even a good trade. It's like, sure, you kill Arcanine, but then at the cost of Garchomp being asleep. I think that's exactly what the opportunity Dustin needs to set up Manaphy, is letting your Pokemon sit there do nothing. So in a lot of ways, it's very scary, someone like Yanma being on the field right now.
Yeah, and we shouldn't underestimate the feint either on that thing. It looks like a return, wanting to preserve that Arcanine here.
We do see Saratoga come in. That's the Manaphy.
Bring in the Manaphy. We see an Earthquake. That's going to do some decent damage. Doesn't affect 2 of the guys on the field. To Manaphy, about a quarter. We do see the Hypnosis, and it connects into the Garchomp. That is a Sleeping Dragon, and I would say that's a pretty big deal.
This is a pretty difficult spot for Trip here, I won't lie, because I feel like in a lot of ways Manaphy is unchecked and Sleep is still on the table again into Corviknight here if Trip's not very careful.
Yeah, I think we definitely see a Hypnosis here. Probably straight into Corv is the truth. And I think Trip's got to hope for that first turn wake up. I guess if you're Dustin, you have to decide if you're turn Manaphy or saving it. Because, you know, obviously Corviknight is still threatening with that Brave Bird there. You don't want to die, but yeah, it looks like he is thinking it's Terra. Let's see. This should be Garchomp.
This game probably will come down to good sleep turns at this point, because it really does feel like a mon like Garchomp being a sleep 3 turns could just be a game ender for Trip.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, sleep is a very, very scary thing, and Yanma is surprisingly fast, you know, and it's faster than Corv. Wait, the Hypnosis, and it misses the Hypnosis with the Compound Eyes. That is a massive miss. No Terra on Dustin's side. What will Corviknight do here?
Very curious.
Corviknight goes to the Brave Bird. Wow. Massive damage. Okay, so things got very interesting very quickly. That was a massive miss. What is that with the Compound Eyes? That's a pretty low chance of missing.
Well, what is it? 1.3 times 60.
Yeah,
not quick enough. But that's pretty good, right?
I mean, hold on. Yeah, definitely decent. It's fair protect here, although that does burn a sleep turn on the jump.
Interesting. I'm surprised to see that, because in a lot of ways I feel like Dustin has the offense now and would want to start attacking.
But you know he kind of does with the tailwind there, so I guess that's a good play there as well. We see a Brave Bird into the Yanma.
Get into the Yanma.
Now something that's interesting here is that's actually going to be quite a bit of recoil damage, and it could potentially be enough to actually deal with that Pokemon from the Manaphy.
Yeah, especially a mon like Corv where we still don't really know. We saw it did about half, so now it's about half again. I want to believe Corv could live with an Assault Vest and attack for Manaphy, but obviously this recoil is adding up very quickly.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You know, Garchomp should be waking up any
and Garchomp has to be due. It's tough to say, but
yeah, I think the real question is kind of that knowledge that we don't have from Game 1 is, can the Garchomp actually survive a Scald or not? Because if it can, obviously there's no concern here, but you know, if it can, Dustin might be in a peculiar position, because that Garchomp's you know, he's been sleeping and taking some, but he's gonna be waking up soon. He's taking some awakening right now, you know.
well, and it's tough to say if we're gonna see another. Oh, we see a feint come out. I'm surprised we don't see no Hypnosis, really.
And a Scald, and it lives. It does live, and Gribble wakes up. He goes for the Terra Blast. Does it go into the Manaphy? It does.
It does.
That Manaphy has been
Manaphy is down. Huge play.
That is a massive play. The Corviknight uses a Brave Bird into the Yanma, so that will take 2 Pokemon out here, leaving Dustin to his final 2 Mons. That being said, the Trick Room is up. So Dustin is still in a pretty good position here overall, even though he lost his Manaphy, the damage dealer.
It's an interesting trade, because Trip's wounded. I mean, these are 2 Pokemon that are not at full health. Terra's been burned. Don't believe Trip has no Terra Captain. I mean, Dustin. So I guess Dustin's lost Terra too, right? So it's pretty interesting here.
Yeah, no Protect on that Corviknight. I'd have to imagine if you're Dustin here, you kind of just lock into the Flare Blitz. It hits mostly everything. No reason really not to. I mean, you could do Head Smash, but it's a shame that the Garchomp lived from Dustin's side, because, you know, now you don't quite have as much knowledge of who's in the back, but your Tailwind's up, so you're probably still feeling decent.
Yeah, it's might really depend on what this Arcanine locks into. If it's going to commit to a Rock move, if it's going to just go to a Fire move. And Fire move might be pretty safe. Something I noticed from this is I feel like Dustin's last WinCon is Arcanine, because we've seen this set that Raikou's not the strongest. So a mon like Rotom Frost in the back could just live through what Raikou's going to present. Obviously Raikou could kill Garchomp likely at this health, but I feel like Arcanine's like the last big hurdle for Trip to kind of take this game.
Yeah, it looks like Trip has a couple Pokemon left himself. He brings in Iron Boulder, who does resist the Flare Blitz. And we saw that
it Scald really well last game, I would say, or game 1, right?
It definitely took that Scald pretty well, but I wonder if you double here. I guess you can't double because the risk of the Earthquake here. Oh, and it looks like Trip actually might have went for a double protect.
Ooh. I feel like this was a fairly safe Earthquake turn from Trip, but maybe he wants to sack the Garchomp.
Yeah, he might be trying to wait for the Tailwind to run out as well. With that Rockhead Arcanine, though, there's not even chip damage on the Arcanine, so those Flare Blitzes, you can just keep being launched, and it's never going to change anything about that health.
Yeah, the Tailwind's nice. I will say, I think both these Pokemon that Dustin has are just faster, so it's really going to be up to Trip to kind of find a way for his Pokemon to live through a turn and get a big attack off.
Yeah, for sure. And Garchomp is, low health, so it's not going to be able to survive in the Tailwind anyway. I think the only kind of question there was, what was the play from Dustin? Okay, so we do see the Protect. Do we get the double from the Garchomp? It fails, unfortunately, and that... Now let's see what Dustin does here. A Flare Blitz into the Chomp.
So the Protect didn't matter because he probably died anyway, but... So I guess that's what he's playing for. He's just trying to get a double off.
Yeah. I definitely think things are looking pretty good for Dustin at the moment here. He's got the speed, like you said, with or without Tailwind. There's not even the ability to stall Tailwind here, but...
Well, I feel like a Boulder Oko's Arcanine, right? I feel like that was kind of a turn where Trip should have probably gone offensive, right? I feel like we know it lives a Scald. It probably lives a double too, the Boulder. So you could just go for the kill on Arcanine and kind of open this game up to where there's not much left for Raikou to do. But now I feel like Arcanine's in a position where it could just try and kill Rotom if it gets an opportunity.
Yeah, I guess the main question here is Trip EV to somehow live a Flare Blitz, or will he protect it? And will we see a double into the Boulder since it just protected? I do think it's still possible for either trainer to walk away with this, but I would say if you're Dustin, you're definitely feeling a little bit better at the moment.
It's really just going to come down to how much this Boulder takes.
Yeah, it looks like Trip's deciding who to actually attack here. Which, it's a big decision, big turn here. You're going to need some things to happen in order to win this game. I think if you're Dustin, you just keep your foot on the pedal and keep doing damage and see what you can do.
Definitely.
So we see the Protect from the Rotom. We see a Flare Blitz into the Boulder. Pretty massive damage.
We see
the Scald. A double
it
into
lives.
the Boulder. Does it get the burn? No burn. Mighty Cleave into Raikou.
Mighty Cleave off. It lives.
It lives. Just barely living. Looks... That's going to be tough, though. I think the speed that is on Dustin's side right now is really going to help him. And I'm not sure there's a lot that Trip can do at this point. I mean, we'll see if something happens, or maybe there's a play that we're not thinking of. But it's definitely looking rough at the moment.
I do think that was kind of a misplay from Trip not to just kill the Arcanine there, because assuming the Arcanine dies, I feel like Raikou could not beat Rotom necessarily. I think the Blizzards would have been able to win that 1v1. Now we see that the Rotom just died.
The Flare Blitz does connect. A one-hit KO. That Rotom is down.
Will we see a Scald come out?
And we do see the Scald straight into the Boulder. And with that, Dustin has taken Match of the Week number 5 for Season 9.
Even without Manaphy, Dustin still pulls through.
Yeah, it looks that was great adaptation. Both players played great, but Dustin he did some stuff there at the end that really was to his benefit. He kind of said, I don't need as much support. I'm just going to run all my damage dealers, which Raikou, those Thunderbolts are going to hit. Arcanine, obviously, this Flare Blitz did hit. The Yanma Sleep was a good adaptation, and even with the miss, he was able to recover. So definitely super good games from both players there.
Well, it's one of those things why speed is so important, because you saw a lot of those turns, Dustin was just going first, and he was able to get that damage off. That whole endgame, Dustin had speed, really, so he was able to kind of control the narrative.
For sure. Yeah, I knew it. From the commentator's perspective, it looked a little scary at first when the Manaphy did not kill the Garchomp. It definitely looked scary for Dustin, but then the mons he brought in the back were definitely the right ones to bring.
And it seems like we have one of our players here, Dustin. Congrats on the win. Great job.
Thank you. I was so lost after game 2.
I mean, who wouldn't be? The Blizzards? That was crazy. He went straight to the Blizzards and they did a lot of damage.
I
a lot of damage fast.
Yeah, I went for the reflect instead of the light screen, thinking like, oh, I should live a blizzard or anything like with Terra. Not thinking I'm like, oh, I'm blowing up here. But I think I should have just pressed a light screen, still do Terra. I think I maybe get out of it, but I think it's still a very similar situation.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tough call to make for sure. I mean, that game too, Trip led some pretty hyper offense and a little bit different from his game one lead. And I think it was just a tough pin for you there because, you know, you had the Raikou, you had the Manaphy. You didn't really want to take an Earthquake. You didn't want to take a Blizzard. So there maybe were options, but I think you still played pretty well throughout the most of the game. And I mean, definitely game 3 was huge as well. A great adaptation. What went through your head when you decided to kind of maybe leave Leaves at home?
I kind of realized that into this version of the team, Leaves wasn't as strong. I'd only saw the Weezing game 1, and I was kind of like, Leaves is mostly there to play against the Weezing and Toadstool like version of the team. It can outspeed a lot, has pretty fast taunt, and then kind of also threatens back to Weezing. But after I kind of realized that the Garchomp EQ mode was a lot more threatening to my team, kind of realized that Leaves didn't have the correct tools to like threaten the other mons that would be coming with Garchomp a lot.
You know, that's definitely a fair decision, and evidently it did pay off. So definitely great call there on that swap and kind of realizing what you needed to do to take home the game.
What were you thinking bringing Yanma for game 3? That was kind of like the big mix-up, and I think we saw the sleep come out and honestly play a pretty big role.
So Yanma's slowly been my MVP this season. Like Manaphy's got crazy KD, like just the easiest Pokemon to play around. But a lot of the times where Manaphy ends up getting like full sweeps or anything, Yanma provides a ton of support, whether it's a couple Bug Buzzes or Struggle Bugs on other teams that have special sweepers. Tailwind, like you saw there, where I was basically locked to outspeed anything that came in, control the speed aspect of the game, and then the Hypnosis turns. Compound Eye's Hypnosis is, even at like 78%, it's been extremely good this season. It just shuts down a lot of stuff, and I mean, I had the freedom of like pressing a second Hypnosis. It didn't even feel like it was a greedy play. It just kind of felt like it was the right play. And even missing and getting punished for it, it still won me the game because I hit the first one.
Yeah, definitely, Hypnosis is a very strong move. Our math skills weren't all there, so we couldn't exactly remember the percentage. But when we saw that miss, we were like, "Oh no, how will this break down after that?" And you're kind of right. Because you hit the first one, it didn't matter as much. But yeah, definitely a good adaptation there.
It really led to a lot of key damage on kind of Trip's bulkier Pokemon. So when you kind of got to the back line, there wasn't as much longevity left.
Yeah, we were playing the weird like, all right, what are we going to protect this turn game there for a little bit? And Manaphy kind of going down a little bit earlier, I was thinking that the Scald would either pick the kill up or maybe I get my little burn chance, but I was a little surprised Garchomp didn't die, but I guess I just kind of underestimated how bulky it was. But I just had enough speed coming out of the back line that I think it was perfect for the 4 mons he brought that game.
Yeah, I think all those decisions definitely led to your success there, and I know that at least us as commentators, when we saw the Yanma Arcanine lead, I think that we were a little surprised. Not that it was a bad player, or anything, it was just we thought you might kind of revert back to the what won you the first game, but obviously, that was a great play. I mean, it just worked, and Arcanine does massive damage, and it did massive damage, and that's what you needed.
Yeah.
We thought it was funny because we didn't know who was going to be in the back for game 2 when Furret came in as your last resort to kind of save the day. Do you think Furret kind of worked out here? How do you feel about Furret, I guess, after this set?
So I think it existed just to like, I think Furret did its job. It made him not bring Toadstool, and that was the entire goal of it. Of seeing, okay, I have to play around safety goggles, follow me. If that like that was kind of why I was confident in the 4 I brought there in the last game, because I was like, okay, cool. He saw I brought it both games, even though it literally lost me game 2. But I think it was enough to be like, oh, he's just willing to bring it every game just in case that mode exists. And when I was able to switch off of it and just have actually like 3 offensive pressure tools, I think it ended up a lot better.
Yeah, I think we saw that.
Yeah, I think
How
so.
how have you felt about Manaphy, would you say overall?
I learned last season that water types are just really good. And
Yeah.
having a water type that has access to like a pretty decent move pool and probably one of the best setup moves in the entire game just kind of makes the rest of the team building process pretty easy.
Yeah, I think we've seen bulky waters win a lot in draft, so I think that makes sense. And having one like this as your top guy, I think we've seen it do a lot of great work. And so far, we think just tail glow is such a potent offensive way to kind of maximize it very quickly.
Yeah, all it takes is a single turn of some redirection, maybe some screens there, and just kind of starts doing a little too much damage.
Did you expect Garchomp to live one?
I didn't. So the Terra Electric like threw me off. I really didn't know what to expect in a lot of calcs because I was just like, I was pretty convinced that like Garchomp was just going to be like, max speed attack, just kind of right there. Like, okay, it might not be as bulky as I thought. And then when it lived the one in game 3, I was like, oh wait, that's a little scary. But I also wasn't fully there with a lot of the couple or some of the team building decisions this week. I think there might have been a better move than Ice Beam just to kind of toss onto stuff. And I also just entirely forgot a Terra on leaves this week. So I think I could have prepped a little bit better, but was like, oh, it's Garchomp. I shouldn't expect this to be bulky. I'll be fine. And then it lived one, and I was like, oh, I might be cooked.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think both players played really well, and you could tell it was a down to the wire one. You just positioned yourself really well that game 3. Great adaptation from you. Trip, and you played great both game 1 and 2. You found the secrets, and I mean, it really came down to just a couple turns at the end there. So definitely a fun match to watch, especially for one on stream.
Yeah, and with that, we'll probably wrap it up here. It was a quick one and a late one, but thanks to the fans for watching. I mean, it's always fun to host these, and Trip and Dustin, thank you both for playing. I think that was a really fun one. We love game 3s, and we will see everyone next week for the other half of the the duo of ESPN. We have Cyber versus the defending champ Yulico. Should be a very fun one.